behalf of the Consulate General of Switzerland in Atlanta and the Auburn Avenue Research Library, I would like to welcome you to today's book talk. My name is Bienne. I'm the head of Public Diplomacy and Cultural Affairs at the Swiss Consulate. February marks Black History Month, a celebration of the contributions African Americans have made to our host country, and also a time to reflect on the continued struggle of racial justice. While Black history is being made every day of every month, the Swiss representations have joined in the special commemoration of Black History Month in the US each February, as it provides an opportunity to understand Black stories, uplift Black voices, and spotlight those who have made a difference in culture and history. With that in mind, we are shedding light specifically on the topic of storytelling this year, exploring how legacy writing contributes to creating empathy and how preserving these stories is so important for the generations to come. In Switzerland, the history of Black people is relatively a new topic that has gone unexplored. However, people of color are, more so than 50 or 60 years ago, part of everyday life, and they help shape our country. The city of Biel in particular, with bilingual residents speaking French and German, is a central place of Black migration and life. Black people have come from different countries and for different reasons. Many were born Swiss citizens, others come from the US or Africa. Although each person has their own background, most of their stories are untold. Fork Burke, Myriam Diarra, and Franziska Schutzbach have done their part to fill this gap and published a beautiful book in 2020 titled "I Will Be Different Every Time: Black Women in Biel." Women from the African diaspora with different and diverse backgrounds and from different generations share stories about their lives, offering insights into perspectives and struggles in their everyday experiences in Switzerland. The book reveals disparities are felt in Switzerland too, as they are in the United States and other countries around the world. I am therefore so pleased that we can host Fork Burke and Myriam Diarra today, two of the three editors who gave Black women of Biel a voice through this book. In just a moment, we will hear some of the stories from their book and we'll learn what an important impact their publication has made in Switzerland. For the talk, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished moderator, Dr. Stephane Dunn from Atlanta's Morehouse College. Dr. Dunn is a writer, filmmaker, and associate professor. She's the director of the Morehouse College Cinema, Television, and Emerging Media Studies program. Dr. Dunn authored the 2008 book, Bad Bitches and Sassy Supermamas, Black Power Action Films. Her comments and writings have appeared in numerous national media. Dr. Dunn lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her family, and we are so pleased that she's joining us today to moderate this talk. Now, before I turn over to Dr. Dunn, I would also like to extend a big thank you to the Auburn Avenue Research Library, in particular to Morris Gardner and his team for partnering with us and for pulling the strings behind the scenes for this webinar to run smoothly. Thank you. And now, Dr. Dunn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fabienne, and welcome to everyone. Happy Black History Month, which is 24/7 and all year round, but we've got this special month, so we're going to make the most of it. But welcome to all of you, and I want to echo Fabienne and say thanks again to the wonderful Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American history and culture and the staff there, and in particular, again, our always partner in the work, Mr. Morris Gardner. Thank you so much. I am excited, and the first thing I must do, because you all don't see it and you need to see it, I've been staring at this beautiful book. Now, do y'all see how beautiful? I'm trying to give a good picture. To give you a little taste, you see how beautiful this book is, with the equally fascinating, lovely title, I Will Be Different Every Time. Isn't that beautiful? And I am really just thrilled to now have connections in a place I've always wanted to visit, in Switzerland, with two of the book's dazzling professional women in Switzerland, and the authors, two of the authors of this wonderful, groundbreaking book, Fork Burke and Myriam Diarra. And we're going to be blessed with them reading a little excerpt and continuing to introduce themselves as the beginning of this wonderful conversation. So Myriam Diarra, welcome, welcome, author. I'm showing it again because I just love it that much. Yes, I do. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you very much. I'm getting emotional. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the interest and for the different things that we will share together. I will read an excerpt from the editorial. So I excuse myself from the beginning. It's not my mother language, but thank Fork, I speak more, better and better English. So we're gonna begin with this one. We are Fork Burke, Myriam Diarra, and Franziska Schutzbach. In the winter of 2013, we started our evening meetups where we cooked together and drank wine. We talked about what it means to be a Black woman living in Switzerland, in Biel. Biel is our city. Fork Burke had moved from the USA to Switzerland a few years earlier. To her, it had felt like she had traveled in a time machine and arrived in the 1950s. Like Baldwin, she felt people constantly staring at her and judging her every move. In Switzerland, I lost my role in life. In the States, I had a role as a woman, an artist, a mother, and an activist. But how could I find my role as a Black woman here? In the United States, there is a Black history, a legacy of Black self-empowerment. There's a literature and art that we can relate to. Here, we have yet to build most of this. Building something, that was exactly what we wanted to do. We soon developed the idea of writing a book in which Black women could talk about their Black female history, a marginalized topic in Swiss public discourse. During our meetings, we realized that despite our differences, we also shared experiences and that it was important to make those visible to help everybody feel less alone. As Myriam Diarra put it, regarding racism, I was often told that I was a paranoid. This makes you feel horrible and alone. And you start questioning yourself, is this possible? Am I paranoid?
Wow, chills. And is there anything before the lovely Fork Burke joins in, my favorite new name, by the way, joins in, that you want to add just by way of self-introduction after that wonderful passage from the editorial? Oh, all right, then we'll go back to you in just a little bit, Myriam, but let's hear from Fork Burke. If you want to elaborate now on introducing yourself, that's fine. If you want to wait till after she reads, that's also cool. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to do any kind of follow-up lines you care to after reading that.
What I can say after reading that? Or you wanted that I introduce myself?
Yes. So can you tell? So you can give the audience a little bit more about you in terms of when you I want to make sure they get your background there in terms of just a little capsule of that.
Yeah.
Really great. Please. Thank you.
I was born in 1976 in Bienne. My father comes from Mali, Africa, and my mother from Switzerland. And they first thought they will have less problem by living in Mali, but they came back because a lot of people had problems with my white mother. They came here and it was not so easy, but it was really not easy then because I was one of the only Black little girl living there. So my father didn't have this community. We didn't have this he was with a lot of different people. Most of them were musicians or in the art scene, and you can tell more open-minded people than the others, but they were not all so open-minded that we could hope. And I did all my schools in Switzerland. And the funny thing is, the book is speaking about this intersectionality between sexism and racism. But I think I was more first aware about racism as a child, as a newborn, perhaps, because it began very, very soon that the people told us that we were not welcome. And it was the same for my mother, even if she was white. And they had a lot of issues with the family, and we didn't have a lot of contact with the African family. My father didn't introduce me so well with the Malian culture, because he wanted to have a distance, because he had problems with his family. They wanted to be, the family wanted for my father that he had to study in Russia. He went to Russia with 16 years, so he could speak Russian, Serbo-Croat, Serbian-Croatian. Now it's another name because of political problems. He spoke different language, came from an academical family, but it wasn't really enough for the Swiss family because he was still Black. And so he wasn't really happy here. He wanted to be a musician, and it didn't work. My mother wanted to work with art, but she couldn't. So both they find themselves with their struggles, and we have to grow up with this. And it wasn't so easy because he couldn't give me this empowerment that I perhaps should become if I was in America. I don't know. We were so alone with this problem. So we built it ourselves alone. And so now I think I'm quite happy, really. I'm happy. I'm a mother of two, married with a great person. And it's always exhausting. This topic is always exhausting because normally it shouldn't be a problem. But a lot of people decided that it must be a problem. And that's why we're here. But I'm happy that we can share this together.
So you see why she needed to speak after reading that passage, which was equally moving as the passage itself. And I want to move on now to our other co-author and allow her to do the same. We are all now already stirred. And so let's keep it going with, please, the wonderful, and as I found already, super funny, dazzling Fork Burke.
You're making me laugh already. Hello. Thank you. I'm so happy to see you and be here with everyone. And I think every time we do a presentation, like it just goes deeper and deeper, like what the book is. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about the book is the unfolding, like what's possible and what happens when we get together and we speak. There's always something that comes out that sticks, that's really valuable for all of us. I moved here to Biel, I don't know, about 10, 11, 12 years ago, 13 probably, from New York. I'm graduate from the New School, but mostly I identify as a poet. Like that's my main job. I'll read to you from this. I have two children. One is in New York, he's grown, and one is a teenager here, my daughter, who makes me very proud. I wrote this essay called Sodai, and I'd like to read you a short excerpt from it. In this moment, everything, honored by the honoring, my to be here. This motion long ago listened, trained, shed skin, replicated my cells, and became us, became isolated, speechless, scattered, longing to pause, a constant story observation and gathering. Gut feelings rooted my promise to reject the collage of wisdom and intuitive surface telling that I have and do witness, us from myself. This oneness without place, I imagine the depth achieved with place. My desire to go deeper is infinite as source itself, the renewal of life, a collaboration between ancestors, the living and the unborn. This motion is in constant participation. We know what we know. I am hearing you from the start with virgin ears, the full richness, fragmented, knowing and birthright wholeness reflected back, eye contact. What is so present that one look from any sister can bring me to tears of joy and sadness all at once and restore me fully in spirit, courage, and knowing? This moment where I love you, feel love, and become love. Oh, place. I've transformed myself at birth into place. And I use my form to love you as certain as life itself in all realms depends on it. I am where writing without, here to there, us before us. I am always writing with you and never for you. What has never let us go? Narrative needs us. We pass through pages. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the poetry and the compelling narrative has already upstarted. So I'm trying to keep myself, very businesslike here but such beautiful passages. You've already begun to answer this question, both with your passages and with your comments afterwards, and even Fabienne in her introduction mentioned the neglect of Black women's history in terms of, Swiss history and in Switzerland, and of the invisibility, if you will, or hyper visibility of Black women in terms of Switzerland. But I want to have you say just a little bit more about why a book. Was this to participate also in sort of scholarly global conversations about identity? So if you could just sort of give us a sneak peek into how the ideal of a book, and this book in particular being this vehicle to carry these conversations evolved, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll start. For me, I think the book started long before any desire to write a book. I think things have traces. And so the book started, everybody involved in this book has been participating. I speak mostly for the three editors since childhood. We've been noticing things, we've been training ourselves, we've been making choices and cultivating and noticing the world around us. And so when we came together and invited other women to join us, to speak, to start to formulate what we need to do and to choose a book, something that would be a record, something that we desire to especially have in schools and that can be circulated. So it wasn't nothing academic, no particular form to say I want to globally discuss it in this way or that way, because it's like, again, it's been this unfolding, but it needed to be because it didn't exist. And I can only speak for myself that was very strange when I came here, because I always tell the story. I went to the library to look for a book on the history of Black women, and there was nothing there except some little article about a story about Biel. And I was like, but I wrote that, it doesn't count. No, so I mean, it really didn't count because it's not what I was looking for. It's not what needed to be the fire under you know, the fire that already existed that we see in the community already. So I'm not answering part of your question, I think, but I think.
Actually, I think you did. Which
Okay,
is,
good.
why a book? And I think you did. Myriam, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, because of this lack of information, history of representation, it was really important to do it. It was a strange way to discover that there was something missing. I personally never thought about that as a Swiss little girl. And I had the courage to do it by myself, because it makes me afraid for a while to do something like that. For example, I didn't spoke about this project for a long time before the book really was really like real, because you have so much people who say, do you think it's really, do you need this? If it will make you some, how can I say, if it's something that makes you feel better, okay, just do it. It was really difficult for me to realize. And now, since we have the book, since we had this discussions together, it was really something that we needed. Not only we, but quite everybody, because everybody has sometimes strange ideas about people. And it's an important work. And I say it more and more. There were also some works about Black women in Switzerland, but perhaps in 2020 it was different. While the lockdown, people were perhaps more aware because they had time to sit down and close the mouth and listen. And
Sure.
Yeah, I think it helped.
Yeah, I love that. I really want to delve into something that was very interesting as I was handling the book when I received the book, and that is the structure. It's in dual languages, so the choices you made there. And I want to hear more about, can you sort of describe the structure of the book for folks who are going to run out, obviously, and order it, but to dazzle them more, can you talk about the structure and choices around that, how you organized the book, please?
Well, we organized it, the languages were very important. The English, German, French, also that the woman speaking, giving interview, testimony, that they would use the form that they wanted, that they would use the language that they chose, that they would be asked to choose the next woman. So this thread communicated like a rhythm of community. It started to. So the first person in the book chose the next woman. Oh, how about this? Oh, okay. So it wasn't that we even sat down and said we need some doctors and housewives and artists. And no, this was very like to see. It really ended up reflecting how much we do know each other and don't know we know each other, so that was part of it. And that the form didn't and couldn't just be scientific or academic or artistic, because that would silence someone. This idea that you have to choose one form, you can't, because you have to choose the way that allows someone to speak and to express themselves. And so that was very, very important.
Yeah, as we spoke together before, this was a possibility to give to those Black women to choose how they want to speak about themselves, because it was something so personal. And because normally we don't have so much possibility to choose. So this was really one moment that they can choose how to say, what to erase. If they didn't want to say something after, they were the master of themselves, from their piece. And it was not like somebody speaking about Black women. They were speaking about themselves.
I love that. I love that the very organization and the very evolution, as well as the makings of it, centered and empowered women's voices. The participants' voices were all part of this organic and organized process, and that there's something very, very powerful and certainly unique about that. Could you each share, give us a little bit of a glimpse of some of the women, if you just give us a little sampling of the women and a tiny bit of their story, maybe, you know, several that we look forward to others reading when they get their copy. Once again, I got to show the cover because it's
Thank you. It's by the artist Sasha Uber in Finland. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Myriam. I would like for you to.
For there are two women that all of them have beautiful stories and very strong moments in their lives. But I think about the two women that are the older ones, I think. The Felicien, she is a woman, she was president from the committee against racism. It was a commission for racism against Black people in Switzerland. And she did, because unfortunately she died 2 months, something like that, after we had an interview with her. And she was so glad that such a book came out. And she was working in sexual health for prevention for female circumcision. And because the problem with this topic is when some people which are not concerned, Western people, for example, which are not concerned with this, they will name it, for example, mutilation and make a war against it, but it's not the way to make prevention, because women who have to do this, they have the feeling that they are part of their community. So you cannot go and say, this is not normal, you cannot do that. So she really transforms ideas from herself to approach those women with a soft art, but a strong but a soft art to make prevention. And there was another woman, they wanted to speak together, Felicien, and the other one is Saida, but they couldn't because Felicien died, and both were, the one speaks German, the other one speaks French. And Saida does the same. She came from Somalia. It was war. She was pregnant. She has 6 kids, and she tried 3 times to get the Swiss passport. Always a no, but she had to pay for nothing. But she's always working on this problem about female circumcision. And for me, it's so strong to see how women, even if it's difficult, they're going forward to help the communities in a white world in Switzerland.
Oh, okay, I feel like we got to pause sometime just to let y'all sort of meditate on that powerful narrative that appears in the book. And in Fork Burke, you would among the many powerful ones, you would highlight right now for us to give us a little bit more of that. Which or whom would you like to highlight?
I would like to start to highlight the first woman, the title of the book, I Will Be Different Every Time, Zamzam Andia. She was there from the beginning, and she speaks English, so I can speak with her. Sometimes I can't speak with someone if they speak German or French, and so it's harder for me to delve. But
this is Zamzam.
Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. her spirit and her energy and her dedication to be herself at all costs and to follow whatever she wants to do and to be a strong mother and person in the community is very important to me. And then there's, no, it's okay.
Wow.
Okay.
So, whoa. And of course, I am having, the same, experience as I have been reading excerpts of this over the last few days and weeks. Zamzam Andia's, I am a love flowing fluid. Oh my G. We thought Switzerland is paradise, and it is even nice and hot like in Kenya. Then autumn came. The integration classes, learning to speak German, and then winter. This was not so friendly anymore, but we survived. Right? Wow. I don't want to, because there are so many just compelling, authentic narratives in this book. And so it's just a wonder to find so many collected in one collection, so different, multiple languages. It really is amazing. But I want to go to something that is that this is one of the most fascinating things that I found in the book, and it really caused me to have a lot of thoughts and thinking around this. And I will preface it with starting with I'm going to the book, because the book again is the star here. And I never get tired of showing this book. I keep saying to people, did you see the cover? It's the cover art on the book. This is so beautiful. So I'm just going to read this and preface to my question that I want you to please elaborate on it for us. Black women's history often gets reduced to the topic of migration or their perceived country of or origin. But many Black women have no background in migration and would not frame their biographies in this context. Others told how it took them some time after their arrival in Europe to come to the realization that they were Black, or rather, they were being made Black. And it goes down a little bit. We had to ask ourselves, who or what were we talking about when we referred to Black women or Black women's history? What did we have in common with one another, and what differences were rendered invisible inside this category? So I very much think that takes us into a very provocative conversation about identity, about external concepts of racial constructions, and of course, intersecting with those is it's gender and national identity, constructions of gender and national identity, right, which are operating in there. But I wanted you to comment further on that. One, I imagine you had fascinating discussions around the coffee and the dinners and the women's gathering about what it means to be Black female in Swiss, what Blackness even means when folks were encountering constructions of that, some of them for the very first time when they came to Biel or what have you. Can you please jump? Myriam, do you want to start us off with your thoughts on the question of identity, this construction versus self-identity that you've all had to navigate?
Yeah, the thing, what is beautiful in the title, I will be different every time, is it means that every person is different. A lot of people, when they think about differences, they think about different cultures. But I think every human being is different. And as the title says, every time, you don't know how you will react tomorrow. If there is, something terrible happening to you, or it's really difficult to put you in a box. But people, they needed to put us in a box because they didn't know. So they asked, but like Fork says once, sometimes those questions are not really questions. They have already an idea, or an idea. They have already the stamp that they want to put you in the face or whatever. So it's difficult because it depends how you answer to them. When I says I'm Myriam, it wasn't enough. So it's difficult to create your own identity if you're not strong enough in your head, or you didn't become the empowerment from your family or good friends to be strong enough against that. Because then, like my therapist says, she's on the cover from the book. She's so great. Sometimes you take some roles to satisfy the people. And I think that I did that. But when I went to Senegal, it was a bit the same again. They want to know who you are. And it's really perhaps because I'm mixed race, I don't know. But this thing with, I think everybody wants to be what they want to be. And that for some people on this earth, it's more difficult to be quiet with your conception of you. And yeah, I couldn't be what I'm today without my therapist and Fork and the book and Francisca and some people. But what is interesting in Switzerland, everybody came differently here. I was born here. Zamzam was not born here, but she lives here. And Fork came from America. Yeah. So we can build a community with different elements. I mean, different elements. We didn't. It's not the same community process than in America. So it's perhaps sometimes difficult to feel really free, because there are some African communities. For example, my father, he couldn't get in because they were really with such a type of mentality. It was different, and they were a bit upset because he didn't want it to come there to them, but he didn't want it. My father wasn't somebody who was a believer in God, or he was Muslim, but he wasn't practicing it. So you can get lost so fast here if you don't have the right people around you. And yeah, it's a bit difficult
Community.
to answer. Yeah.
Community around you too, right? So that you're not merely sort of projecting what it is constantly externally being projected onto you as that filter, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Fork Burke, what about you in terms of this? I mean, this question of Blackness and identity and the external projections onto you on quote sight, if you will, this question of being questioned as to who you are. And we know that's a doubled question. It's not who you are, it's like, what's your name? It's where you coming from. You don't belong here. You can't be from here, right? It's got all those kinds of implications underneath it when you get the question, who are you?
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
I guess just twofold. Before I came here, a sister asked me, how was I gonna, find my community? How are you gonna do that in Switzerland? And it just came. I was like, I'm just gonna be my own community. I didn't say I'm gonna have to be my own community. I said, I'm going to be my own community. And I just came here not experiencing anything except myself as a poet and observing other people, and somebody say, where you come from? I'll be the first one to say my mama, I just keep going. But to notice other things, how we interrogate ourselves and the systems and the colonized mind around the world, what it means when somebody Black says, I'm not Black, and then what it means when you let them explain to you what they mean, and then and then you get this other layer of Black being put on you. Black is how you look. It also doesn't say anything about where you come from. and then to come from a diaspora. So just that we're not referencing our land, we're always referencing, you know, also something that happened to us. I think we're evolving, and Black is a unifying political way of connecting and moving through, but it's not enough. I know, like, when some of my friends would say, well, oh, when I go here, then they think I'm white. You know, I just think we're dealing with so much that we have to heal and change and declare who we are. We have to clean house. And so that's why, for me, this book is written for us. You know, it's written, that's the only people I had in mind. You know, most young women, like 90%, everybody else will heal from that, you know, but it's from women, for women. I did do that Freudian slip. Yeah, it's from women.
It was a beautiful, allowable, timely Freudian slip. If that was what it is, we're gonna have to come up with another term that takes his name out.
Thank you. Let's do that.
I'm not there yet. I don't know what it is, but we'll come up with it.
I'll come up with one.
But you definitely, your comments at the end there definitely began to answer that question of what you hope this book, what had you hoped that this book would, you know, accomplish or do, so to speak, and even in terms of a global sense, not like just within your community in Switzerland, in Biel and beyond, but beyond, in terms of a global community in dialogue. Was that part of, you know, the thinking about, you know, what you hoped the book would do, achieve, say, that you thought was really important to put out in the universe?
I trusted the book will and does activate that. You know, I've been so, you know, deeply touched and surprised by, you know, some young women at certain readings that come up and say, so I think a piece of art, a book, you know, once it leaves home, you know, and it starts to live its own life. So for me, I want the book to live a good life and to have vision and purpose and to make good friends and do good things, and to find its community. You know, one book speaks another. So that.
Myriam, before you jump in and answer that, I just want to make this clear, because we're going to say this a couple times. We have a question about where we can purchase this book, and I want you to shout that out. Shout it out, chat it, put it in the chat. Let's just pause and do that right now. That all important work.
Chat.
Book, please.
It's from Brought Soup. So we can put the link in the chat.
Okay, so Brought Soup is
from the publisher.
okay. Okay, so they can find that online. Is that Brought, BROUGHT?
No,
Brought like bread, bread soup.
So just in the chat, where it can be ordered or who you contact to get a book in hand.
Should I write it in?
Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please put it in. I'm sorry, Myriam, that was the all important work when we see that.
No problem.
But please, in terms of what you hope this book and hope and still hope this book will accomplish, or how it will communicate to the world, what you want to say.
So first of all, I hoped that people will read all those testimonials quietly and just trying to understand things that they tried to say. For example, you shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't. Everywhere you will find dumb people, but this is something different. It's not only something about dumb people, and that we are not paranoid. That we have there are a lot of different stories with a lot of things that fits together, fortunately and sometimes unfortunately, like racism or sexism. So it gives the possibility to a lot of people to learn something, and that worked a lot. A lot of people cried, even white people. For example, they didn't know. I have a testimonial, an interview with my sister. We have the same father, but not the same mother. And there were a lot of things that people didn't knew. And they were a little bit sad or shocked, or they could understand why I was sometimes so weird because I sometimes acted strangely, but it's like that. And I'm okay with it. And there were more things that I hoped. For example, now I'm a part of a Afro-feminist collective in Bienne. And I'm working in for an association which is working at schools or at different level with different kind of people to make prevention about different kind of discriminations. Even at the school of my children, this what was my highlight, because it was the school where I went, where I suffered. Of course, there are different teachers now, but I could stand on the stage and explain why we should change things in our books, school books, why we should protect the children from discriminations, because they're always saying, no, you cannot speak about racism to the children, they will be shocked. But if you don't do that, you don't protect the other ones. So you don't have, for small children, you don't have to go in details what really happened on the boats with slaves. You can speak about self-esteem, about diversity and things like that. And when they're older, you can speak about the real facts from history, and not just Switzerland, they did this and that, and our clock, they built clock and chocolates. No, they did a lot of terrible things too. But yeah, so we have to put this this false pride away and give the real version and listen to the people who experience the things, and not people want to speak about the people who experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I live in America where there is a war on knowledge about America's own history and the role of white supremacy, racism in shaping the very core of American culture. So I was nodding my head vibrantly going, wow, it's just amazing how this is a global conversation. But I want to make sure that we hear a little bit more from this precious book in your own words. And Fork Burke, if you have a lovely pearl of a passage, and then Myriam will finish us out with that reading, that would be great.
You read first, Fork? I don't, Yambura.
This is I can't speak, tongue-tied. Nimbura Makuru, and her piece is called I Value Me. Go to the excerpt. Okay. I really value the fact that I am me. When I think about being Black, when I look back at me in the mirror, it's me. Nimbura. I came to Europe when I was young. Before I came to Europe, I looked in the mirror and I saw an image of this person who is me, and not yet contaminated by the world's image of me. I'm from this village. These are my parents, my family, and everybody around me is Black. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nevertheless, when I came to Europe, I knew that I would be in a society in which I would be a minority. And of course, with time, I was made aware of my Blackness. I mean, other people told me about my Blackness. I became aware it is as socially relevant thing, as a structural thing. But for me personally, when it comes to terms of Blackness, it sounds artificial. It sounds as if someone else is narrating to me about me. You see what I mean? I know I'm Black, but it's not me looking in the mirror and seeing me this way, pointing out the obvious thing. The Blackness in me is someone else's narrative about me. When I came to Europe, my dad warned me and told me that there's some people would not like me simply for who I am. He was preparing me for any racist eventualities. It is so unfortunate that you have to sit down with little kids and tell them, be careful out there, they don't like you out there. All in all, I have a very strong foundation. And I believe that this is why it worked out for me. Being very much aware of my Black racial identity has not deterred me. Of course, I've been to places where the doors were shut just because, but I choose another door and I keep on moving on. It's Nimbura.
Wow. Yes, Miriam, and then I'll respond to a quick question in the chat. Please. We're taking that little pause because you have to take little seconds pause there. And so if you could, and then I'd want to have time for at least one, sort of a question really quickly that I want to answer. So Miriam, please, if you have a passage for us that you want to remind us, please do.
Yeah. I'm going to read Perpétue Kambengele's part. This is Perpétue. She's one of the youngest lady that we have. Alors. So I wanted to read first a part where she is explaining how she arrived from Congo to Switzerland. Now, she was born in Bern, the main city from Switzerland, but her parents came from Congo. They have to flee. And but I take the other part, so it won't be so long. So she was born here. She speaks Swiss German. We have our own German. It's a bit special because the German people don't understand us. It's a dialect, and she can speak it since she's a little girl. But it wasn't enough. And here she says, "I don't like being asked where I come from. I know the intentions for the question can vary, and sometimes it is just an offer to small talk. It depends on the context. When I'm shopping and somebody asks me out of curiosity, I have big issues with answering that question. In a situation where culture and country of origin are per se a topic, and people are here to talk about this, then it is a different story altogether. In such an environment, it is a valid discussion. Unfortunately, this question is often asked to categorize people. When I say I come from the Emmental, Emmental is a place with mountains and it's a really a Swiss place. Or when I say I live in Auburn, it's near Bienne, I am asked where I really come from. I get very upset when my answer is not accepted. I normally ask back, where do you come from? I sometimes do the same. Most people laugh and say, you know what I mean. Some people also try to guess my nationality. Are you from Kenya or Uganda? Or they say that they have been to Cameroon. They just put everything African in the same box. I'm more upset about being asked the question of my origin all the time, and not because I think the question is totally wrong. I just feel exposed by the question. I'm under the impression that the people opposite me think they have the right to ask. They ask things about me, specific information, as if it was their right, just because I could not be a Swiss woman based on my look.
So everybody out there, we're taking a pause here because it's just so powerful. I mean, I find this book project and your voices here and in the now, representing all the beautiful voices in this book, so very powerful. And I've just really been an honor to be introduced to this book and to have this conversation with you. Want to mention just a couple of things in the chat before we get out of here from Narhis Pierre. I'm sorry if I butchered that first name. Forgive me. Do you have an event calendar? I can see if you have anything going on April 1st to the 17th. I'll be in CH then. So if there is, though, an events calendar that you have a link to that just shows maybe any upcoming presentations, virtual or otherwise, that you're having, that would be, I think, awesome to have and to put in the chat. This comment from Dwight. I want to say first, thank you for being you. I honor you as my global sisters. Your spirits are amazing with adventures and many spiritual adventures globally. Please do another presentation. Many need to hear and know. And I must not only get the book, but travel. And Dwight adds, there was a reason we live in every country in the world, to challenge others to expand their vision of love and humanity at a higher level. That from Dwight.
Wow.
It's wonderful.
Thank you. It's wow.
So there, I thank you, Fork Burke and Myriam Diarra. Thank you, Fabienne, again. Thank you to, again, to the Auburn Avenue Research Library on African American History and Culture, which continues to bring year-round unique conversations. Please visit their site, and you're missing out if you aren't familiar with their calendar of events, because it's rich not only during February, but 12 months out of the year. I am a witness over years to this, so you're missing out if you have not been checking out their events. There are many live and there are many virtually. To our authors and their co-author in her absence, and to the many women represented in this book, we appreciate you empowering your own voices, and in doing so, empowering the rest of us. We wish you so much speed and success in continuing to share this book with the world and participating in what really is a global community and a global conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It feels so good to be in Atlanta like this with you.
Yeah.
You have to,
I was like, oh my goodness.
have you been?
Stephanie, you just don't know. You just don't.
No, I never
Yes.
been in America. It was
First,
my dream to be in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The thing is, this is another goal that the book reached. It's to make links, not only with the people, because with this lack of community, we had the possibility to make links, but in the heads too, who I really am, who I want to be. And this is for me a unique experience. I'm so glad that I can be a part of it. It's really, I will cry after.
I know you will.
Before you cry, get the email out of that chat, so that maybe if you have an event calendar, you can send it to them. But thank you so much, all. Thank you so much, all who are live, and those who will stream this after the live session. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.